Progress.
Okay, excuse me, sorry. In the beginning blending color video, we did a lot of dry paper, wet brush, moving one color into another. Now, this is where I want to take us this time. But we're going to do the same type thing. I mean, they can never turn out, alike twice. Now, with that, I'm going to start with the landscape first. I'm going to show this to you periodically. And I'm going to start up here with the green. Now, when I say my brush is wet, I'm saying, look, it's dripping water off of it. I mean, dripping water. So it is fully charged with water. And I'm going to put my brush into my green. It's a blue green. Now, I want to remind you while we work on this that, yes, color names will be important. They're not important right now. We're working on technique. So use any green that you have. The point of it is to get a lot of it on your brush. And I have put in here enough pigment. It's almost a little wall of pigment in here. And I want to be real sure that this line does not dry. I've rinsed my brush full of water, tipped in here, and away we go. And I'm leaving some white spaces, and you'll hear me say over and over, because I wanted to. That's the reason. Now, it's the same green. I'm going to do it down here. Usually I'll change color, but I want to show you this. Same green. Rinse my brush. Come back down, smush it some more, leaving spaces. Now I'm gonna use a yellow gold, any yellow you want. I mean, you can use the cadmium or the lemon or the Aurelian. That's not what we're going to worry with right now. And I have a whole lot of it on my brush. And again, I'm sort of drawing a line. How does that sound? Just drawing a line through here. This pigment faded in quicker than this pigment. I can add more. I can come over here. I can add more. This is artist discretion, and it's also, remember, exploratory. So I'm going to rinse my brush. I'm going to spread this out some. We'll see how this is beginning to work. Now, mine will never look like this again. Yours won't look like this again. I'm going to stick, blue in here. And I'm going to let it run and do whatever it wants to do. I'm going to spread this around. Still, oh, there's blue in my brush. That's okay. And you see how I'm just dabbing this along. I'm going to add a lot more of this yellow. Officially, it's quinacridone gold. I like it. I like the way it plays with other pigments. And I'm putting a lot of it on because I'm about to pull a lot of it out. I don't know that I want to take it all the way. Rinse my brush, clean my brush, spreading it out. Now I'm going to get into a brown. Again, you can mix your brown. If you have Van Dyke, use it. If you have, it doesn't matter. Sepia, use it. And I am moving that right into here. I went down up here, so I'm going to go up here. I'm tilting, remember the paper, I'm going to tilt it more right now than I have been. I forgot to mention that in the beginning. Tilt your paper. Blue, any blue you want. And I'm going to add that underneath the sepia or brown. And this is blue. It's blending, see, with the other colors. It's getting to be a green blue. That's okay. I'm going to spread it out. In my opinion, it's not as blue as I want it to be. So I'm going to come back in and I can add more of the same blue. I can add a different blue. And I'm going to let that run, maybe some down here. Let it play. Rinse my brush. That's a little big for a hole in the middle of the page. I'm going to put green on top of it, and I'm going to let this bleed. Actually, now that I see that, I'm going to add some more green in here. Now, the only reason is because I want to, so you do what you want to on yours. Now, what I'm about to show you is important. Before any of this dries, I have my wet brush again. This is going to scare you. And I'm going to come off the page and I am going to pull this pigment all the way up, lots of water, and let it blend into nothing. Now this is what I'm doing right here. So I don't have any hard edges, and this tree will turn out brown. I just don't want any hard edges here. But if I put the tree in first, I've got to do this, stop, this, and it looks a little stagnant. So we're going to come back. The tree's mighty wet right now. So we'll come back to that. I'm going to put in my sky, very, very wet brush, very, very wet pigment. Oops, not enough. See, on the tip of my brush, I'm drawing the line. I'm going to rinse my brush, clean my brush, and I'm going to do the same thing. Look, see the water dripping? Now, here's a couple of things you can do. I can add more water and let this pan out. I'm going to take a minute and show you something fun. Get that out of there. If I tilt this, see it's running over here. That's fun. Now, a little off the subject, but while I've got this here, I'm going to let's put a little violet in here, and that's going to stormy up that sky a little bit. I'm letting gravity do its thing. And you see that's bleeding down into here. That doesn't concern me, but then it's not bleeding very much either. So while that's still bleeding, I don't want this hard edge to dry. So I'm mopping that out. Ooh, that's nice. If this is bleeding too much, I'm going to be patient with my paper. I'm going to leave that alone. I see there's a lot of bullet holes in here that we'll come back and we'll deal with later when we decide what we want to do with it. I'm going to check this. Of course, as I do this, I'm drying the paper to some degree. But now that's too wet. That's too wet. That's too wet. This is too wet. But ooh, look, that's going to be nice. If I decide I don't like it, I'm going to erase it, damp brush, and do that. But this whole exercise is more about, you know, the texture of it all. I'm going to do what I said not to do. I'm going to add a little more green here and here. Bleed that in. I'm going to add more yellow here because I want it to be more solid. And I think I might even, let's see, I'm going to turn it this way. Let's give it a bump. Add a little more water and we'll encourage that to bleed. It's not going to go where the water is not. Okay, that's all right. While I'm at it, I'll add more sepia or more brown. I happen to be using a sepia. That's a lot of sepia right there. And that's good. I mean, we don't want to get, we're having a good time. We don't want to get too, which now clean brush. That's a mighty small space, so I'm just going to drop water in there and let it do its thing. Now, when you talk about wasting pigment, I can hear some of you thinking that. Anytime you learn, you're not wasting anything. Oops, see me dabbling around? However, I like it. I'm going to put my brush here, soften that a little bit. You're not wasting anything. Now, I really had better leave this alone. And I'll show you later. I want to add more brown over here, but I'll show you how to do that afterwards if you decide you don't like it. Lots of water coming down here. And this is why I'll just mention it right now, put my brush down. You know, as beginners, and this is what I hear all the time. Well, I didn't want to waste that good paper on practice. Well, I didn't want to use my good pigments on practice. Now, I'm going to compare it to practicing golf. If you're practicing your tee off, you're not going to use a plastic ball because you don't want to waste a good ball when it hits the water. And you can bet it's going to hit the water more than once. But it makes a big difference in between practicing with what you're going to be playing with versus that plastic ball because you don't want to lose a good golf ball. Hobbies are expensive. Same thing with your club. Same thing with your tennis racket. So here, if you use an inexpensive paper and you don't use a professional paper, and you learn all of this technique and you go to your good paper, it's not going to handle the same. If you use a really inexpensive pigment, they don't have a lot of pigment in it. So when you come to here, yours isn't going to show much color. That's not you, it's the lack of pigment in that tube. So spend the money, use a good student grade. Two offhand, and I'm sure there's many more, would be Grumbacher and Cotman. I teach with the Grumbacher. Cotman's fine. Just please don't get Prang and Crayola. Ooh, probably shouldn't have said that. All right, I'm going to dry, getting impatient, so I'm going to blow dry this. Maybe not, maybe not. Let's carry on. Now, here we go. This is truly going to make you crazy, but sit tight, watch me, and then you can practice it when you're not watching. I'm going to draw organic shapes. See that bled, it hits some of the, and I'm not going to do many of them at a time because I don't want that edge to dry. And I have here a mound of pigment here. It's like a little lake of pigment. Clean my brush. I'm going to get the same yellow, the same color I used in the foreground, and I'm going to draw. I'm going to scribble. I'm not going to draw anything. I'm going to scribble this in here. And because there's blue in the sky, I'm going to drop a little blue. It's on my brush. Same thing down here. Now, I am aware that the green organic line that I drew is going to be drying soon. Rinse my brush, clean my brush, and I'm going to smush water in here. Clean my brush. And I'm going to do the same thing down here because I want this all to bleed just like that. Clean brush. I'm bringing out some of the lines. I know this looks like funky monkey right now. Now I know, because I've done it before, I'm going to want more green in here. So having that on your mind, we will wait and come back to and adjust what we don't think we like right now. So let's do another one here. I don't like to do more than I can get to because then again, you know, we're looking at hard edges developing. There's my green, rinse my brush, get back in here, draw my lines, scribble. But I'm leaving white in between because there's blue in the sky. And you'll hear this over and over when I say, if you have it one place, put it another. Clean water. And I'm sort of laying the water in here, and I'm going to let this watercolor do its own little dance. I'm going to connect this one, but before I get too far, I want to scribble in here. There we go. And because I want to, I'm going to add a little more blue in here. Actually, I didn't rinse my brush. I stuck it in the blue, and that's okay. So I'm going to connect these. I'm not connecting in here. That's going to be bark. Now I could pause this and save you the agony of watching all of these little, I'm going to bring this right on up off the page, organic shapes that I'm doing. We'll put one right here on top of the sky. But if I make a mistake, and I'm likely to, you don't get to see how it gets corrected. And that, making mistakes is essential because you need to know how to get them corrected. I'm going to do this one first before that green dries. Now you're watching me, you're not painting right now. Let me do this one. It's on top of the blue. Clean my brush, smush this in. Smush is a word you'll hear me use often. I'm on the side of my brush to smush. I'm literally smushing. And I'm going to connect that and that. And let's add another one up here. It's going to be lower. There's going to be more of this at the bottom than as the tree grows taller, but we are not concerned with the anatomy of a tree right now. We'll do that later. Let's stick one in here and see the shapes are getting smaller and smaller. I'm going to do the same thing here. Now I'm working quickly, probably more quickly than I should. I'm just putting that in there. Here we go, smush, 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 smush. I'm not gonna, I don't want to just connect all of them because we are gonna put, you're gonna like this. Let's leave that alone for now. What I'm gonna do is the same green. I'm gonna run a bead of this green wet brush, drip it in, and that's gonna run all the way down the bark of the tree. You see that about to drip? Not concerned. I'm going to get some of the blue and do the same thing. Now I'm going to leave it alone. I've run the tree part all the way down off the page. I don't particularly want that dot there. So, you know what? Let's I can wick it up. I'm not going to blot it. I've got the corner of a paper towel, and I'm going to let that get wicked up instead of blotted up. Now this thing is wet. I'm going to put more green in it. You won't know. Let me put this back up here. What you want to do until you've done a couple of these. So I'm going to put more green. Ew, I had a chunk of pigment on there. I'm going to rinse my brush and let's try that again. But not a lot. If you have a different green that you want to use when you come back in this second time, do it. And I think I'm going to leave that alone for now. And I mean for now. We can always come back later and adjust anything we want. So I'm looking at this, I'm looking at that. And I think now I'm going to add some more brown. You know, sort of a different, because see, I didn't do it over here as much. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to do this some more and down in here. Clean my brush, wet my brush, spread it out. Now, if this paper may be too dry, I'm going to add more in here. If I did that, I need to add more over here, don't I? Planned random. Not sure that I like particularly that white spot. Rinse my brush, dry my brush. I'm just adding a little bit of color because I don't want it that dark. Now here's something fun to do. If my paper's too dry, it's not going to work. If it's too wet, not going to work. I'm going to get mister, and I'm pulling the mister back away so I get a fine mist. And I'm misting this because it's going to give me some texture in here. I don't know if you can, let me see that. Might have to wait a minute and let it do its thing. In the meantime, back to my brown. I'm going to put a little bit of whatever brown this is. I'm going to put a little mix a little ultramarine in here. Let me show you. So it's an attractive brown. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to charge that. And I'm going to tilt it this way. See, so the running comes across the tree and not up and down on the tree. Now it bled out in some places here, and that's okay because we're not finished with any of this. What I am, nope, too wet, too wet, too wet. I'll pause enough to blow dry it. You know, we talk about being patient with your paper. This is a good time to go get something to drink, maybe have lunch. Let this set up the way it wants to set up. So I'm going to take that back. I am not going to blow dry it. I'm going to practice what I preach here, but I will pause it so you don't have to watch the paper dry, watch water evaporate. So I am going to pause it for a minute. Okay, I've been paused about 7 minutes. And excuse me, I kicked the table. That's why this camera's blurry. That's pretty. Here. This is what you don't want to do. I'm good at doing not practicing what I preach. Come back in with my knuckle. And it's just barely damp. So I'm going to work on the tree a little bit more. I'm going to change browns because I think that's an ugly color. And I'm going to do a, actually, I'm not sure what this is. It's a redder brown. I think it's close to a burnt sienna. And I'm going to come up this tree trunk on one side. I'm going to run a bead down. Actually, it's more than a bead. I'm going to form that edge, clean my brush, and I'm going to spread that out. That's better. Now we have no separation between here and the tree. That doesn't bother me. My brain knows that's a tree. However, if it bothers you, I have a flat brush, I wet it, I've dried it, and I'm going to pull up, soak up some of this. See what I'm doing here? And add a little light source to that. Now we haven't put the branches in, but each time I want to erase some of this, I need to rinse my brush before I try it again and dry my brush, or I'm just going to put that pigment right back down on that paper. Okay, let's go into this happier brown. And I'm going to do this. And I'm going to do this. And I'm going to do this and this and this. Now, let me show you something real quick. When you're painting a tree, it's always wider at the bottom than it is as you go up the trunk. Same thing when you're doing a tree limb. When it comes off of here, it's always thicker than out here. That's where the new growth is going to be. Make that darker, make that thicker. I'm going to add another one up here. You add as many or as few as you would like, because that's you know, I hope you don't get bored with me saying that's how you learn, but you know, it is. So I'm going to connect this. I'm going to add trunk up in here. Now, I'm not using the technique we've been using before. I'm really now more painting than we did. You know, add this up here. I'll add one here, maybe one here. Well, that's, now I'm going to bring this. Now you see, I've got my hand sort of contorted. There's no reason you can't turn this upside down and do this. Well, I like it. So far, so good. I'm not sure right here, but I'm going to wait. But I know that I want more color, so I'm adding a little bit of water here. I'm going to get back into my green, and I'm going to spread it out. And I'm going to see now again, I've got the point of my brush in here. It's going to dry lighter, so I'm going to add more. And you really don't know all of these until you get in here and go, whoops, too much, oops, not enough. Water in here. More of the green. The foliage will be thicker on the interior of a tree, but that's not, oh, Lord have mercy, that's bad. Okay, whoa, I picked up too much of a pigment, and this is just an opaque wad of pigment. So I've rinsed my brush and I've dampened my brush. It's not sopping wet, so I can move some of this pigment around. I have a chunk of paint. Well, lucky me, it just came up on the brush. Well, that was a good, happy accident. It looks, everything looks mighty green. So I'm dropping blue in here. I'm not painting it. I'm dropping it. Staying on the tip of my brush. Okay. Let's see. You're always adjusting. I'm going to add a little green organic over here. Draw in now, that's wet, so we'll see what that does. Rinse my brush, clean my brush. Now I'm going to add another branch out here. Now what's disconcerting to me that I don't like is where this intersects there. This is not the time to mess with it. Later, I'll come in and blend this green. I can do it a little over here. But if I get up close to that tree limb, it is going to bleed into a mess. Actually, that might be all it needs. I'm going to, again, going for texture, drip water in this tree trunk. It might blossom. It might not blossom. This is not part of the lesson, but while I'm at it, now I'm going to have to wait a few minutes to see if this works, being patient with my paper. Actually, I'm going to see if I can get one in here. I mean, I don't want one everywhere. It just starts to look trite. But let's see what happens if, and again, it's going to take the paper time. So this water is pushing out and the pigment is saying, stop it. So we'll see how this goes. But for right now, this exercise, this is a success. Now, again, at the risk of being redundant, I've done this more than 50 times. You haven't. It's going to take some practice. So be patient with yourself and have a good time with it. I'm going to take a minute to show you a piece that I do like. Not that I don't like this. Move that. This is a piece that I like, done this same way. But it's after several learning processes. But you can see how that's done. Let me move that. And remember, we're going from here, to move this stuff out of the way. Get that mixed up on the camera. From here to here. Same technique. Wet brush, dry paper, draw my line, whatever color I choose, rinse my brush, dripping wet brush, and bleed it out. Now I'm doing this on top of this because you can go back in on top of anything you want. So on top of this, I've got some of that yellow. I can bring that across, rinse my brush, dry my brush. No, I did not dry my brush. I'm sorry. Rinse my brush. It's wet. It's can you hear the water? That kind of wet. So now with this in mind, do some practice. You can stop, repeat, rewind, do whatever you need to do. And I would appreciate it at the bottom down here. There's a place to subscribe. If you would do that for me, I would appreciate it. And feel free to comment and like. See, look how wet that still is. However, I'm doing what I should not do, paint with my fingers. No, that was kind of fun. Put my brush down and leave it alone. If you take this so far that it's horrendous, turn it over, paint on the back. I heard someone say one time, after all, we pay for both sides. If it's really horrible, you can throw it away. For crying out loud, don't lose any sleep over this. We're doing this for fun. So subscribe. You can see down here, subscribe, like, and comment. You see it down there? And I thank you for that. And I will see you in the next video.